Labour's polling is getting very bad very quickly. Last week, the governing party was on just 29% in the polls. Reminder, in June, they were polling 45%. And meanwhile, the government's approval rating is now minus 36, and 6 in 10 voters say Prime Minister Keir Starmer can't be trusted. And it's beginning to feel like poor media appearances are becoming the norm. Here's Labour Minister Angela Eagle earlier today on Good Morning Britain.
Back in 2017, you visited a retirement housing complex and said that one of the things that stood out for you was that residents were rightly angry about the Tory threat to take away the winter fuel allowance. How come you voted in the House of Commons then to take away the winter fuel allowance from 10 million pensioners?
Look, I mean, I voted to bring it in the first place when pensioners were in much more poverty when we came into government in 1997 than
Why
they
punish them
are
now?
We have we have a £22 billion hole in the public
Why do pensioners
finances.
have to pay for that?
Well, there'll be a series of things that we have to do to stabilise our economy and get it growing again. And I'm sure that the Chancellor will be talking about that in the forthcoming budget. I am at least satisfied that the pensions triple lock is remaining. That means pensions are going to rise by 2.5% by earnings or by inflation,
right,
whichever is the
Even for
highest.
those who are going to get any increase in their pension, that doesn't come in until the spring. We spoke to Judith, who's in her 80s. Therefore, she loses, because she's not eligible for pension credit, she is about to lose £300. And she's worried about the other things you might do to people like her. Let's have a listen.
Can I ask everybody to write to the Prime Minister and your MP and say, please...
Think again.
Think again. Please don't abolish the bus pass, because we rely on that. Please don't take away our single person's tax relief from council tax, because we don't deserve it. We deserve better.
Yeah.
And I never thought a Labour government would do that. Never.
Are you going to take away the single person's council tax discount?
I'm not in the Treasury. I don't know what the situation is with the fiscal consolidation that has to happen.
I don't know. By the way, in 2016, the Labour right wanted Angela Eagle to lead the Labour Party. They thought that person was good enough to be the Prime Minister. And I'm not joking. Here she is, this is a great picture, at the launch of her candidacy back then when they tried to remove Jeremy Corbyn. Her logo looks like some knockoff perfume you can only find in TK Maxx or Home Bargains. Also at the beginning of that, yes, I voted to take away this benefit from most recipients. It's going down from 12 million to 2 million recipients. But 27 years ago, I voted for it, okay? 27 years ago. You can't have it both ways. Should pensioners have this or not? You can't say they shouldn't have it today, but they should have had it 27 years ago. Now, that wasn't the only appearance Angela Eagle had today. It turns out she was doing a media round. Maybe John Ashworth had to meet a man about a dog. Here's Eagle speaking to Times Radio.
Let's boil it down. Why shouldn't the Prime Minister, he earns 166 grand a year, why shouldn't he buy his own glasses?
Well, why don't you ask him?
Well, he's not here. You're here for the government. I mean, if he comes on here, we might try...
I am, but I'm afraid I'm not responsible for decisions the Prime Minister makes.
You're not, but you have an opinion. But should he not buy his own glasses? You're wearing a pair of glasses now. You presumably paid for them yourself. I'm wearing a pair of glasses now. I paid for them myself. Why shouldn't the Prime Minister?
Well, the Prime Minister has had his say on that, and if you next time you interview him, you could ask him yourself. I don't have an opinion.
You must have an opinion
on what the Prime Minister does in these instances.
Well, I'll tell you why you might have an opinion, because Angela Rayner had an opinion when Boris Johnson was getting money from donors. She tweeted, "What right does a man who complains he can't live on 150 grand a year and asks Tory donors to fund his luxury wallpaper habit, what right does he have to lecture someone trying to survive on £80 a week?" That's what Labour attacked Boris Johnson for doing. And now you've got someone who has a luxury glasses habit, who's taking money from pensioners. People are going to have an opinion on that, aren't they?
Okay, you've had your rant.
Is that a rant? I'm asking a question. You're honestly saying that it's completely in your... No one's going to say to you in your constituency, why on earth is he and his wife getting free clothes and glasses, do you think?
Well, when I get back from Berlin and I go to my constituency at the weekend, I'll let you know.
Okay, you've had your rant. And by the way, if a Tory cabinet minister said that during the wallpaper stuff, they would be dragged. You've had your rant. Imagine Jacob Rees-Mogg saying, you've had your rant. There would be viral tweets from Otto English, James O'Brien, having a meltdown, calls to resign, maybe even a panorama documentary. I'm not joking.
With regards to the winter fuel stuff, and it's clear to me that Angela Eagle just doesn't believe any of the words that she's saying. I can't see into her soul, of course. This is just my estimation of her opinion on this. But as someone who I think I've seen Angela Eagle, I don't think she's necessarily somebody who takes personal joy in taking away money from pensioners. And so she's been forced by the Labour leadership decision on this to have to go out and defend it anyway. And it was clear to me that she was struggling to find the words to defend it because I don't think it's very defensible. The same is true for the conversation you're having about Starmer's being bought clothes by this Labour donor. It is indefensible. On Cross Question last night, Barry Gardiner was asked the same position, saying, can you find any reason as to why a Prime Minister or his wife should be able to be getting this huge amount of clothes bought for them by a rich donor? And his answer was just no. No, I actually can't think of a reason to defend this. And what's silly is that because we're in this position, rather than actually being able to just admit that, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this in future, we got it wrong, they're trying to defend the indefensible. Again, it is indefensible because they made those same attacks against Boris Johnson for identical reasons, right? Let's be very, very clear. The wallpaper incident, where it was just a rich person buying Boris Johnson fancy wallpaper and a rich person buying Starmer and his wife fancy clothes, right? These are identical situations. The criticisms are identical. So the defences are also equally nonsensical. Although, to be fair, I will give Angela Eagle at least a bit more... I'll be a little bit more sympathetic to Angela Eagle on this than I would be for David Lammy, saying some nonsense about, well, in America, they've nationalised the ability to be able to buy clothes for the Prime Minister, which is a terrible defence. But her just saying, I think this is a non-story, I'm not here, why don't you ask here? To me, whilst it doesn't seem a particularly good answer optically, it is at least an answer that is a bit more truthful than what Lammy was saying, or at least we're closer to like a defensible position. Well, the one thing I'll finish off this discussion with is that with regards to the fact this is a Times radio interview, I find it very funny. Like Peter Obon tweeted out today that he remembered the Times trying to bury the story or trying to suppress the story around Boris Johnson trying to employ Carrie Simons as a £100,000 a year chief of staff. And yet, very interesting, they're very happy to hammer Labour on this issue. Personally, rather than the Conservatives thinking that Labour are at fault and the Conservatives aren't, and the Liberals thinking that the Conservatives are at fault but Labour aren't, maybe we should be critiquing both sides of this discussion, regardless of which side you're on basis of kind of morality or ethics on this. Maybe that's just me.
If somebody is buying the Prime Minister, like you say, some William Morris wallpaper or some Christian Dior ties, there's no real difference here. And by the way, it's not just clothes, which Keir Starmer is getting galore in terms of freebies. It's not just wardrobe gate, it's football tickets too. In response to questions about him taking hospitality tickets for football, Keir Starmer told Bloomberg that he had no alternative. I can't go into the stands because of security reasons. Therefore, if I don't accept a gift of hospitality, I can't go to a game, Starmer said. Never going to an Arsenal game again because I can't accept hospitality is pushing it a bit far, he said, without explaining why he couldn't pay for a hospitality ticket himself. Now, the cheapest hospitality tickets at the Emirates are around £800. It's a lot of money. If you're going to go a few times a season, I don't really see the problem. You're Prime Minister, you earn around £160,000 a year. But in any case, his argument about only being able to go if there's hospitality because of security, nobody else could go in my position, isn't true. Here's Jeremy Corbyn. It's like, where's Wally? Of course, I would never call Jeremy Corbyn a Wally. I wonder what he's looking at there. Maybe Hector Bellerin giving away possession. He had a great first couple of seasons, but he really fell off. Now, you might be saying, look, he was the opposition leader, Aaron. Okay, that's really impressive that he's just there in a stand, but it's not the same as the Prime Minister. Okay, well, here's Rishi Sunak at St Mary's Stadium watching Southampton. As you can see, he's actually meeting ordinary people. Now, I'm sure he has extensive security on his person there, but this still undermines Keir Starmer's central point. And then there's the fact that Starmer not only remains unapologetic for taking free clothes from Labour Party donors, as well as the free hospitality, but plans to continue doing it. This is from The Guardian. Keir Starmer has suggested he will continue to accept gifts from the Labour peer Lord Ali, as he rejected accusations that he had not followed parliamentary rules relating to gifts of clothes to his wife. The Prime Minister said there was a massive difference between declarations and corruption, and said he did not accept the notion that taxpayers should fund clothes for senior politicians and their spouses. I feel like there's a third option here between the taxpayer buying your Christian Dior ties and Labour Party donors doing it, Keir. I feel like we have some middle ground. Maybe you could buy your clothes yourself. After all, before politics, you're one of the most senior lawyers in the country. You've earned the best part of six-figure salaries for most of the last 20 years. You were on £200,000 a year as Director of Public Prosecutions, a job you had until 2015, and yet you can't pay for your own ties and glasses. And the alternative is not the taxpayer paying for it. Unreal. Imagine doing all that with a straight face, defending it, saying, I'll do it in the future, whilst you're cutting the winter fuel allowance for 10 million people. Keir Starmer's doing just that.